Anis Jung is an Indian author, journalist, columnist, and a chronicler. Her conversations with the oppressed and the underprivileged and her vision for an egalitarian society makes her writings relatable and sincere. This lesson is an extract from her eponymous book, which consists of her conversations with and impressions of many underprivileged children subjected to human cruelty and exploitation. Her notable publications unveil India in more than one ways. This book, Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood, is a case study of disadvantaged children and their hardships for survival. It deals with stories of children coming to city as domestic helps, cleaners, bearers, or servers in dhabas and construction workers. Stories include the one that are given in our textbook of Sahib, a rag picker, Mukesh, the destiny child of bangle makers in Firozabad, and Idris, the shepherd boy who was kidnapped and shut inside the carpet making workshops of Mirzapur, with countless others like him. These children are subjected to merciless treatment. Their fates are sealed in the darkness of their living conditions. They are partners in misery and poverty, and their portrayal in the lesson throws light on how painful and shocking are their journeys to a cruder adulthood and a never ending poverty. Spring refers to the season of contentment, jubilance, abundance, and enjoyment. We call it Vasanta Ritu in Hindi, and the festival of colors, Holi, marks its beauty and significance. One's childhood can be considered the time for enjoyment and growth, a happy go lucky time of one's life. One is supposed to be free from the burdens of life. But the childhoods of the children portrayed in this lesson have nothing to do with any of the typical childhoods that the privileged children undergo. Their childhoods are boring, dull, burdensome, sickening, and troubled. The joys of their childhood are robbed by the elders who see them as a means to earn more and partners in their survival. The metaphoric aspect of this title is apt as the spring of life, the childhood, the period of enjoyment and growth, is robbed by the elders in a selfish manner. Before we could read the lesson, let us see a slice of a rag picker's life. Part 1 of this lesson is about a boy named Sahib, a resident of Simapuri in Delhi. Simapuri is an urban junkyard. Migrants from Bangladesh settled far, far away from the city long time ago. Simapuri is still far away from the super advanced Delhi and its posh living conditions. Sahib and his mother have no identity. The only means of survival for them is rag picking. Sahib, at the end of the conversation, gets an employment in a tea shop which could fetch him a stable income of rupees 800, but he had pawned down his carefree childhood for that. Let's notice the expressions. These expressions would help you understand and appreciate the lesson from the author's point of view. I want you to take note of them carefully. Let's know Seemapuri. Seema in Hindi means the border, exterior, or the boundary. Seemapuri is a suburban settlement of Bangladeshi refugees. During the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971, many families whose life and modesty were threatened by the militant groups started migrating towards India. Our nation opened its border to accommodate them temporarily. But their going after the war became impossible because their properties were either lost or plundered or usurped. There were about 10,000 refugees way back in 1971. There are about 6 to 7 lakhs now spread across the exteriors of Delhi presently. Let's read the lesson now. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning, scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. Sahib left his home long ago. Set amidst the green fields of Dhaka, his home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him that is why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school, I said glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. After months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Sahebi Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the Universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the street with his friends, an army of barefoot boys, who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf, he answers simply. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another, who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities, on village roads. It's not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is no explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. I remember a story of a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard lived the new priest. There were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remained shoeless. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Seemapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Saheb's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it is no longer empty. The structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage, or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voters' list and enable them to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain, says a group of women in tattered saris. When I ask them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers, wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become their transit homes. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Through the years, it was acquired proportions of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. But for a child, it is even more. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Saheb says, his eyes lighting up. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. One winter morning, I see Saheb standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Saheb too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Someone gave them to me, he says, in the manner of an explanation. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. This morning, Saheb is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. Does he like the job? I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look, and the steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Saheb is no longer his master. Let us recapitulate. The author encounters Saheb, a rag picker, on her attempt to study the children who are exploited by the society. He was the son of a migrant from Bangladesh settled at Simapuri. Simapuri had been a temporary settlement of refugees way back in 1971. The refugees escaped to seek a safe shelter in India, fearing their life, but their returning became impossible after the war, all of which have been discussed separately already. Their sole means of survival has been rag picking till date, which has turned Simapuri into an urban junkyard. The author has attempted to throw light on their abject poverty and disadvantageous life. She gives us a glimpse of how the simple joys of childhood have been difficult for these children and how garbage has remained a source of wonder for them. Saheb, the central character, ends up as a child laborer. His life is a classic example of the dark intentions and the dark attitude of the society towards children. Now let's discuss the use of language in the lesson. The author has employed a simple yet powerful language to describe the living conditions of children from a downtrodden community. Her vivid descriptions make us take a trip through the junk maze and its innumerable possibilities in the life of Simapuri dwellers in general and Saheb in particular. The author has interwoven a number of literary devices to make the corpus of the lesson beautiful. First and foremost is the use of metaphor. The very title is metaphoric, which has already been discussed for you. Second, Simapuri being the periphery of Delhi, which is both literal and metaphoric, as it is the boundary and far from the developments of the national capital region. This point has also been discussed separately. Let's discuss the use of simile. The author compares the little rag pickers to the morning birds for appearing suddenly and disappearing as suddenly as they appear. There is also irony and juxtaposition employed in this lesson. The author makes an intentional reference to the boy's name Saheb-e Alam to juxtapose it alongside his actual condition. She speaks about how Simapuri, being a part of the national capital region, yet aloof and backward and unnoticed.